Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my Yakuza 5 EX hard difficulty video walkthrough. This is part 3 chapter 4, Beyond the Dream, and this is going to be a two-parter because this is a very long mission. A lot of you might be wondering, Chris, where is the Yakuza 5, you know? There was a small niche of people who are really enjoying this, and we demand more Yakuza. I don't think many people are saying that because it is a pretty exclusively reserved title for the hardcore need only apply, and a lot of Yakuza fans probably prefer to play than they do to watch, and then you combine that with the fact that the 5th game is probably one of the easier ones. You know, I'm under no illusion that this is one of the easier ones, but I wanted to cover it because I think it's a great game. Unfortunately, the part you're watching here as we play as Haruka is my least favourite part of the game, and it kind of killed my momentum and my drive to cover this game. And that's not to say that it is in any way bad, or it's a section that you won't enjoy. It's just a sequence I would love to be able to skip, because as much as I enjoy rhythm games and I enjoy Jav idols and all that kind of stuff, it's not what I choose to play, and it's not the reason I play these games. So it definitely took a backseat to my motivation to play it. You'll notice Kiwami came out and I covered that one quite quickly, and I had a ton of fun because you're playing as Kazuya, and he's the game that I play this games for. Did I call him Kazuya then? Kazuma, sorry. Kazuma Kiryu, I think his name is. It's been a while since I played these games, guys, so I'm dropping all that knowledge that I used to have, which probably wasn't too much to begin with, but it was enough. Anyhow, the dances are the same as they've always been in this competition. You have your idle heat, which you always want to do on the bit with the most notes to try and win it over, and as long as your performance is pretty consistent, you should win regardless. If you do the side quests and you do all the extra stuff, you can give yourself a couple more tools in your arsenal, but for the most, this is just an opportunity to listen to the song with lyrics, even though you can't read the chuffs because you're too busy doing the whole DDR thing. And you can, I suppose, ogle at Haruka and the other people if that's your thing. But once again, there are websites for that, guys, if you want to see that type of stuff, and I recommend them more because you can get straight to the meat of things, so to speak. But I think that this chapter will have some Akiyama sections in it, and Akiyama is a bit of a baller. I do enjoy playing as him, and he definitely saves this chapter for me. But for the most, I'm really looking forward to the finale, because the finale you get to play as everybody, and some of the fights in it are really great. And let's be fair here, guys, I'm here for the fights, always will be. I wish I could get those DLCs, I wish I could unlock, you know, those missions where all they are boss rushes, but I don't want to beat people by running into them in 30 seconds when they're actually really tricky to do and super annoying and frustrating. I want to just fight the bosses. I have no interest in bullshit challenges. I just want to fight the aspects of the game I enjoy, and there's no code to do it. There's no shortcuts, unfortunately. You have to do the work, and I just don't want to. And it sucks, but it is what it is. I've accepted it, and I've moved on. So, Yakuza 6 and 0 are the two most recent installments of the game that I'm going to be checking out when they land. I don't know if I'm going to be getting them Japanese. I think I'm going to wait English for 0, because I did Kiwami and it was confusing as fuck, as fun as it was. 6 I'm not too sure about, because at the moment that game kind of sucks. It's a technological increase and a jump in the series, but it's a gameplay step backwards, and I don't like that. If I wanted, you know, super interactive, cutscene heavy, God of War bullshit, then that's what I would go for, and there are plenty of games that do that fantastically. I don't need Yakuza to be one of them. Also, if you're quite new to this channel and this walkthrough, you might be wondering what the hell is this music in the background of the game? Well, unfortunately, when I was recording this, because of a setup I had on the PlayStation 3 using optical, it didn't capture audio because it changed the audio settings and it kind of fucked the gameplay, and I didn't have a save backed up, so I ended up playing a ton of the game with 0 audio on it, so I decided to pop some of the soundtrack on it. I've done mixing and matching of certain features. This is me getting stuck trying to get down this fucking thing because this game is stupid. Look at this trash, dude. Whoever designed this needs a kick in the teeth, because it's stupid. Movement is everything in a video game. Why the hell would you have some moments like that where it's a complete impasse? You know, I don't want a realistic elevator bus molestation simulator. I want to get to an objective in a game. It doesn't have to be realism, doesn't have any of that dog shit. I'm killing people with bikes, for Christ's sake, yeah? I can't pass a few tourists on some stairs, just kick them off. Really dumb. And it doesn't happen in Kiwami because that's got a way better system, it's way more arcadey, but for some reason, Some of the design choices in 5 will make the movement all weighty and stupid and less arcadey, and that's never good, guys. We don't want a simulation racing Yakuza, we want Yakuza. Yet for some reason, the iterations they make on this series sometimes are just crazy. And then the next game comes out, they don't even have them, because they've gone a different way. And as much as I respect and enjoy that kind of evolutionary gameplay and design, it's annoying as hell. Because it creates problems that weren't present in previous games, and situations where previous games did things better. And in my eyes, a sequel should never ever do things worse, it should do things better. Just a fundamental part of game design should be you iterate on what was good and you add new things. The new things can suck, that's fine, at least you took a risk, but don't do the established things worse. That's just crazy, and this game definitely suffers from that. On this choice here, I picked the bottom option, and I'm not too sure if it's right, but if you get it right, you will get it immediately, I think. Which, that's 100% luck, because I was skipping the cutscenes to do this walkthrough, so I had no idea what this mission was asking of me, because it had been a while since I played it. But all we're doing here is talking to this dude to get our ability up again. We might have used it in that dance battle, so it's always worth, rechecking. And it looks like I'm going to try and get into a dance battle, so I don't think I've shown too much of this off, because I've been trying to get through this as quick as possible. I do like these moments, but they're not complicated enough. Even on the hardest difficulty, they're not complex or fast enough or tough enough. Even if you fight against the higher ranked opponents, the patterns still seem a little bit too easy for this kind of game. And don't get me wrong, I would rather them be modest than insane, but at the same time, I come from Guitar Hero, so I'm used to demanding patterns on rhythm. I'm not a DDR person, but I'm assuming they'll be the same. They're used to it being up, down, left, right, up, down, right, really, really needing you to focus and get in there and do it. And this is not that at all. And Yakuza is not scared to throw a difficulty spike at you for no reason. They're not. They do it all the time. Try playing Virtua Fighter in the arcade. You get your ass kicked unless you know how to play Virtua Fighter. They do a lot of stuff intentionally in very specific ways. Look at that one in... I think it is this one, isn't it, where you do the stand-up routine with the guy, where not only do you have to understand the cadence of Japanese, but you have to understand the timing of comedy as well, which is really difficult to do in a foreign language, because timing is everything to humour, and the way that you deliver it is what makes something funny. So when you're listening to people speak a language you don't speak, and you're trying to add the punchline to it, like you do in that quest, it's insanely difficult. And they don't pull any punches there, yet in the dance minigame, where any Muppet can do it, because it's not language specific, all you have to do is follow the patterns and press the buttons, which is what we've been doing for a very long time as video gamers, and yet it never steps up to the highest of the high. I hear that the secret boss guy, whose name I'm currently blanking on, which is typical, but it happens, there is a fight in that where you go up against the female sibling of that particular enemy, a Mon sibling, I think is the name, and apparently that fight is one of the hardest in the game, so maybe that one is way harder, but once again, you've got to do every single side questy thing on sub-story from the streets in the entire game to unlock those fights, and it's a bit much. For somebody that fights a Mon for the combat, it's a bit much, I've always felt. Which is the reason why I've only ever fought him in one of the games, because it's a real investment to do it, and as much as I like playing Yakuza, and I don't like doing all the story shit all the time. Some of it is just, it's great the first time, but do it a few more times and it's not so great. But at least this game lets you skip cutscenes, because Star Ocean, as I like to call it, insipid and heartless, or insipid and soullessness, doesn't, which is bizarre. It doesn't let you skip any of the dialogue in an RPG, and it's an RPG that has incredibly ridiculous difficulty spikes, much like all Star Oceans have had. And the save point is as draconian as it's always been. It hasn't changed since the fucking SNES. And you have to watch it all again, but you can't skip any of it. And it's just this really strange thing of, this game has 4 difficulties. 4 difficulties. The story is fluent dog shit, it's offensively bad. The characters are horrible, the dialogue is some of the worst I've ever seen translated, and they expect you to play through this game 4 fucking times? Come now. The only people who are going to do that are the sadists, or the people who use those opportunities to go and make food, or drink, or anything but sit and listen to your 12-year-old teen angst space bullshit that doesn't mean anything, doesn't build towards anything, and is as complex as a fart. Like, this is pretty funny too, watching us do this chase sequence. If you don't know, the chase sequences on extra hard are kind of stupid. And I don't say that because I enjoy insulting things, even though sometimes it can be fun. Look how much damage I'm not doing to this guy. Look how big his life bar is. Is it really necessary? And the answer's no. But this is an area where the balance is just broken. This should never take this long. It shouldn't. It turns a chase sequence which is supposed to be fast, rapid, a nice rush of adrenaline, and it turns it menial. It makes it banal. It makes it boring. And if you add tedium in the name of difficulty, you're losing a lot of audience of people who appreciate difficulty. And if you've played Yakuza 4, and I think even Yakuza 3 had them, those games do these way more difficultly. Because the people that you're chasing can literally lose you. There doesn't seem to be a rubber banding mechanic where they wait for you. On that game, they just go. They don't care. So it makes the chase sequences legitimately tricky. On extra hard, it's kind of insane. Like, there's even minigames in the 4th game where they teach you how to do this better, and they give you benefits for doing it, where you get faster and you do more damage during these sequences. I'm not too sure if 5 has those, and if it does, I'll have to take it easy on these particular sections, because I never found them. But on this game, they just decided to inflate the life and make it so that you could always catch them. And all it does is it turns a really fun 20 seconds of differential gameplay into this, which is you watching me spam between 2 moves that give me forward momentum to do a lot of damage to a guy who gets a speed boost, so I have to chase him again, and then I pick up some weapons or something and I throw those at him. And then eventually he does a counter move, which should have ended the fight, but does hardly no damage in a game where heat actions are incredibly overpowered. So it seems to me like a section that's a complete anathema to other parts of the game. Like, why does this not end it? Look at the damage it does. It does not. That would have killed that guy if this was a street fight, because the heat actions, as I mentioned, they're redonkulous. They're absolutely insane. And when you go back to the other games, they're not like that. This game changed heat actions, some people think for the worst, because they made them so ridiculously powerful. You can take off nearly 3/4 of a life bar with a single heat action on this game. It's insanely powerful. And I think that's great, because I like the heat actions and I like the reward of doing them. I would be a little bit strict on repeating them, because that's just me personally. But then we have this sequence which just doesn't play by any of the rules, and we end up chasing this guy for a few minutes. Which, you might be saying, well, maybe it's more fun to play than it was to watch, which potentially it could be. You know, I can definitely see those opinions. But I don't ever remember enjoying these moments. I remember these moments being good the first time I played. And then I remember them not being good. I remember on the recording run thinking, wow, this is taking forever. And you know the moment you notice what you're doing in a video game? You've lost. That was me right there trying to get this guy near this pole so I can attack him into it and do the double knee. Look at this. Boom! That is a painful technique. But did you see what I mean? I do one heat action and the dude is gone. Vanished, that son of a bitch. But back on the streets, as Akiyama, back to the Yakuza formula kicking ass. You might be wondering why I had such a scaling opinion of Star Ocean 5. Well, that is a game that has broken my heart recently. I bought it the other day. I recently completed it, and I'm never going to play it again. And for somebody who really likes Star Ocean, that's a pretty strong opinion to have, and you might be wondering, well, what the hell? That doesn't sound like you, Chris, or that doesn't sound like a Star Ocean fan, because if you've played these games before, you know that they have a New Game Plus feature, you know that they have multiple difficulties, you know that they have battle trophies, they have the Gabrielle Celeste in the optional dungeons, they have the Ethereal Queen in the other optional dungeons, they have all the crafting, they have a lot of great things that you can do, because there's a lot of fun to be had in those games. And then you realise just how lazy Star Ocean 5 is compared to 4, and 4 was bad. 4 was a game that I played a lot of because the gameplay was solid, but everything else in that game was horrible. It was really, really bad, and don't get me wrong, Star Ocean has never had the most compelling characters, the best writing, or the most interesting story. But the third game did. The third game had a story that actually hooked people and was interesting, and the characters, you know, at times it was up and down with their quality, but there was always a consistency of of where the story was going and how the characters were feeling. And it wasn't gonna break your heart or set you afire on its sheer quality, but it still worked, and I liked it. I hear the second game has got a great story, but I've only played a little bit of that one. I hear the first game's got a decent story. The fourth game had a terrible story. It had terrible characters, it had some of the worst casting of voices on the planet. You know, these voices were cast to torture people who played the game, because you cannot get enjoyment out of people hitting those kind of pitches with that terrible writing and following up every single answer that they have with the word okay. It's the kind of recipe that the Russians would use in a counter-terrorism situation, and it was horrible, but they let you skip it. And they let you skip the cutscenes, so after you beat the game the first time and you suffered through that insufferable tripe that was a story, you never had to care again. You got the experience, you could play for the gameplay, because that's where that game shined. And even then, you know, there were issues with it. It wasn't great in certain areas. There was some bizarre design choices about swapping discs to access levels. There was a lot of problems with that game. But in total, I played the shit out of it. I beat it on every difficulty, which is Earth, Galaxy, Universe, and Chaos. On each of those difficulties, except for I think maybe Earth. I might not have beat Earth actually, I might have started on Galaxy. But on each of those difficulties, I did both the optional dungeons, killing Gabriel, Celeste, and the Ethereal Queen. On the hardest difficulty, I cooked all the food. I encountered every single enemy in the game. I got 90% to think of all the weapons, 90% of all the other things, about 700 battle trophies, crafted up the arse, did a ridiculous amount of things in that game, and I did it because it was rewarding and it was fun. Did the arena several times. I did a lot of that game. I can't even imagine the time I probably put into it. Star Ocean 5 took me 25 hours to beat, and I'd completed 60% of the side quests. There's no arena in that game whatsoever. To my knowledge, I couldn't find it, didn't find it, and at no point outside of 2 bizarre teleport moments did we ever leave the planet that we started the game on. That is the distinction of how different this game is to the ones that preceded it. And it baffles my mind as we return back to Haruka here, and we do some more dance practicing while one of the fighting tracks is on, which is kind of an interesting contrast. But it blows my mind. This game has been 7 years in coming, and I'm not going to tell you that I waited 7 years for it, because I didn't. I was playing Star Ocean 4 at that point, and I was playing other games, but at the same time, I was always looking forward to it because I have a lot of faith in Tri-Ace. Infinite Undiscovery is a game a lot of people think is shit. I liked it a lot. Didn't like it too much at first, but it grew on me, and by the end of my first playthrough, I really liked it. Then I did everything on that game, because I liked it that much. Resonance of Fate, another game. Some really, really good features, but for the most, it wasn't the best. It had a really vague, almost dreamlike, reverie-esque storyline featuring this upper class and this girl that's with you, and you're these bounty hunter guys slash mercenaries, and it's all gun focused, and the combat was really weird but awesome because it was so different. And I loved that game. Did everything on it. Neverland was a piece of shit, but I beat it all. Got those crazy gold guns that were ridiculously powerful. You know, tiled all the cities and all that trash, did all the quests, did all that goofy arena that you have to repeat like 20 times to complete each one, which was ridiculous because you had to get a star on them all. Stupid amounts of hours invested in that game because I have faith in Tri-Ace. Valkyrie Profile, adore those games, especially the one on the DS, believe it or not. Another one that a lot of people seem to hate. I thought that had some of the best writing and some of the darkest narrative I've ever played in a JRPG, and the combat was great because it mixed execution with strategy, and it was super fun. Star Ocean, till the end of time, adore that game, and it kicked my ass. It was a really hard game. I ended up saving over my file, which made me really sad. I really, really like Tri-Ace, and I really like JRPGs, and for some reason we get better technology and worse games, and I'll never be able to tell you why, because I don't understand it. I can't understand it, and Star Ocean 5 just adds to this great confusion of mine, because this is a game, right? I didn't kill a single new enemy in it. Every enemy I killed, I've killed in Star Ocean 4. Every single one. If you want to call the humanoids wearing different garbs as different enemy, I'll give you that. But everything else is immediately copy-pasted from Star Ocean 4, which a bunch of those guys were copy-pasted from 3, because RPGs do that. It's one of those nostalgic asset reusage that people don't complain about because it comes from the old Final Fantasy days of the games didn't have that much budget and money and teams to build them. So instead of having a new enemy, they just palette swapped the enemy and called it something different. And these enemies were seen so frequently that when they came back in future games, it was almost, like I say, a nostalgia trip. So you have your classic enemies like your Flans, your classic enemies like your Tomberries or Cactuars or whatever you want to call it, those kind of creatures. And Star Ocean does this as well. But when you don't throw any new enemies at me, like, what the fuck? Nothing new. Nothing new. Zilch. Zip. Literally nothing. And it baffles my mind that they didn't take the time to design anything, because let's think, well, maybe they were too busy animating all the actions and the skills and the attacks your characters have. No, not really. Not when you consider that I'm using moves right now that I used as Fate in Star Ocean 3, that I used as Edge in Star Ocean 4, and it's the exact same rigging for everything. They do the same thing. It's identical. Half the characters are palette swaps of characters from 3. There's a woman who does close-quartered combat, who's got green hair. She's called Anne. She's Clive. Literally. Same moves. Everything in this game is recycled. Nothing is new. Nobody worked on anything. There's no bosses. The bosses are like dudes that just stand there and take a whooping because if you know how to play Star Ocean, you just stunlock shit. There's no boss juggles anymore. The combat seems like a massive step back because it's slower, there's less intricacies, there's less moves. They remove blindside for a counter mechanic that's worthless. Like, it doesn't make any sense. There's maybe 2 memorable bosses in that game, and everything else they might as well be enemies, because they're not the giant bosses that they were in the 4th game, or the giant bosses that they were in the 3rd game, where there was tons of them every other minute. There's about 5 dungeons, and 3 of them are the exact same thing because you're going into different places that are intrinsically the same. There's nothing new to this game. They've bastardized the tile system from 4, where when you win in a certain parameter you get benefits, but on this one it's even simpler and more casual, because all you have to do is attack. Attack to build experience. You can get 200 experience bonuses after every battle just by mashing X. There's 0 skill required unless you're on the harder difficulties, and even then there's 0 skill required because of the way that things stunlock you and the way that the dodge just doesn't work the way it should. Like, it's baffling, guys. Nothing is new in that game. I don't understand it. And then you think, well, maybe they focus on the crafting. The crafting's the same. I've done enough crafting in 3 and 4 to understand how it works, and it's the exact fucking same. Same with all the synthesis and all the other stuff. It's intrinsically all the same. They've just copy-pasted something that worked, and that's great. But it's not new. So where did the money go? Where did the effort go? Where did the years that were developing this game, where do they go? You might be thinking, maybe they went into the cutscenes. What cutscenes? There's one CGI at the beginning of the game. There isn't even one at the end. There's nothing. Nobody worked on this game. Nobody created anything. And it's baffling. Absolutely baffling. And you think, well, maybe they were too busy writing that epic, gripping story, or those fantastic, wonderful lines such as, if we die, you can blame me in heaven. There you go. It really pulls at the strings, doesn't it, that one? It's fucking trash. It's absolute garbage. And the worst part about it is it's dragging mechanics that are fantastic into this mire of tepidness and uninspired shit that's soulless, effortless, and you shouldn't buy it. And it sucks to say that because I really like Star Ocean, but 4 sucked. It had a soul. It had something to it. 5 sucks on a completely new colossal level. It's a slap into the face to every single person who's ever enjoyed those games, and I just can't understand how that game got made in the state that it's in, because I could have fucking made that in RPG Maker, because it's literally the same amount of effort that they put in, and these are the people that created this series or made this series great, and they're obviously not there anymore, because it feels like a DLC to 4, where they've just made so many mistakes and they've added nothing new and they've just copy-pasted. Half of the big enemies in 5 are enemies that were in 4. That weird phoenix thing. That weird dog that's electric thing with the triangle diamond collar. Like, it's sad. There are more enemies in the Wandering Dungeon in 4 than there are in the entire game of 5. Something is wrong.